Hey guys. Hello. I'm very dirty. Hey guys, it's your best boxing friends. I'm Kelsey. This is Rachel. Rachel, this was an exciting weekend for the McCarsons because there are so many interesting heavyweight fights on. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what we saw. It was today. We're actually filming on Fight Day on Saturday to talk about the
Special edition.
special edition heavyweights, heavyweights, heavyweights. So I was interested in three of the heavyweight fights. Three of the, well, actually more than three of the heavyweight wires, but the main
Well, we
fighters.
have like the whole heavyweight division. So we've talked about it on the show before that I didn't grow up watching boxing.
Yeah.
When we met and then got married is when like I started watching like boxing. And right around that time, the heavyweight division was like prominent. There was a lot of like stuff going on in the heavyweight division, but it was people like James Toney, Chris Bird,
Yeah, it wasn't.
Jameel McCline. It was like, and so.
Well, and Vander Holyfield was still fighting. There were still guys around that.
But like, it was a heavyweight division where I was accustomed to seeing people seeing like a very few like elite heavyweights in really good shape, and everybody else was kind of roundies.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? Like maybe they would really be cruiserweights if they got in shape.
And of course, out of that era was born the Klitschko brothers.
Yeah, which I love Vitaly Klitschko. Like
we love Vladimir too.
Yeah, but I love Vitaly Klitschko.
Love. But yeah, so the three fighters I want to talk about today are the so-called great American heavyweight prospect Jermaine Franklin, and then also some British prospects. We had James Joyce, who defeated Brian Jennings by 12-round decision, and we watched Daniel Dubois knock out Nathan Gorman.
Yeah.
Of these three guys, of these three winners of the weekend, Rachel, Jermaine Franklin, Joe Joyce, and Daniel Dubois. Who's the like? If you're who are you gonna give the gold star to, Rachel? Who gets Rachel's gold star for heavyweight hopeful?
Well, the name I can't say. Dubois?
Daniel Dubois. I say it's Daniel Dubois. Dynamite, Triple D. You know him, Triple D. I call him because his name's Dubois. He's from England. But I love Daniel Dubois.
Is Dubois even a French name?
I don't know. It sounds French. I'm not a worldly person. I don't know these things. Never really traveled that much. But listen, Daniel Dubois, I thought going into the fight, I favored him over Gorman. It was kind of split in the box out there in the boxing world, which I understand because both were undefeated.
Yeah.
And Nathan Gorman's a really good fighter. But what I see in Daniel Dubois is something special. I see somebody with fast, explosive reflexes. I see a guy who's big. He's 6'4". He's got a lot of power. He's got real power, not just heavyweight power, but legitimate power that he would have at any weight, really. It's not just about his weight.
So, like, you look at Joyce, who has heavyweight power.
But not, like, power. Right. And he looked great. He won the British title. He's 21 years old. Yeah. Fantastic performance. I was super excited to see him. What did you think about him, Rachel?
Well, I thought, so, like, you talked a little bit about his boxing, how he looked in the ring, right, in the fight. What I noticed is we watched the, post-fight interview, and
he's a tenderheart.
Kelsey would describe him as precious, and like what I see there is like I feel like I see humility, and here's like why I like that, because I feel like people that are humble, their ego isn't going to get in their way from them obtaining whatever heights are intended for them to obtain. And so sometimes I feel like there's people out there whose ego does get in their way, but man, they have been blessed with so much talent, it kind of doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And they reach like the heights, not the heights of like being a human. They reach the heights of whatever sports arena they're in.
Yeah.
Now there's other people who in their sports arena, their ego gets in their way and they don't reach the heights that they could have.
Yeah.
Athletically, whatever they're involved in, because they carry this chip on their shoulder, and then they get caught up in things, and then they can't take like constructive criticism. They can't be honest. They can't like look at themselves, and you can't be honest even as an athlete. Like, you have all these like entourages and yes men around you and stuff like that. Yeah. But I think the ones that are truly like great, we may see that kind of stuff, but behind the scenes, somebody is giving them truth.
Yeah.
And so I feel like what I saw with Dubois, I don't think I can say that name. what I saw with Daniel is like he seemed really humble, and even like I say the name Daniel, and I'm like, okay, that's what I'm gonna call him because it just fits.
Daniel, baby, goodbye. Sorry. Yeah, well, I agree. Like, also, he talked about his next fight, and he was like, "Oh, well, it's got to be my promoter, Frank Warren, my dad." Like, he's got these people
like
that make the help make that decision.
Like he's
That's awesome. I love that. Loved his performance more. I mean, we can love and not.
When
like
it seemed genuine when he said
yeah.
it too. I've heard a lot of fighters say, "Well, it's just up to my manager," and they do it. But you can tell that like you're like whatever. But no, this was like he was like, it's not up to me. It's
he
up
doesn't
to these guys.
do a lot of like talking on the media. Like he just does his thing and fights, and I love that. He seems like a great guy. Congratulations to him for winning the British title. That's quite the beautiful belt, and historically very important and prestigious.
It's like the ring belt.
Yeah, I think those two are the best looking belts, and both are really, really important. Who would you give your medium-sized porridge bowl to?
Well,
so the large bowl of porridge, it changes to porridge like Three Bears.
Went to Daniel, and then I saw Joyce fight and win today.
He did.
I didn't see what's the
Jermaine
other guy?
Franklin. You did watch it on Friday night.
Oh, that was last night. So I kind of watched that. I remember not being like I didn't want to watch it. Is that a thing? Like
yeah.
I don't know how much I paid attention to it.
Well, it's precisely because you did pay attention to some of it, and you were like, "Why am I watching this?" Here's the thing. I'm gonna go ahead and tell you. You're gonna give the small bowl of porridge to Jermaine Franklin. Here's what I don't.
Joyce is fine. I thought the announcer made an excellent comparison when the fight started, and he said Joyce had I think he said lazy, like way better.
Yeah.
But he didn't mean it like lazy. He said a la like George Foreman.
Yeah.
And when I saw George, I was like, oh yeah, that's exactly like George Foreman. Like the way he would, when I see clips of him and he kind of lumbers, you're like,
yeah,
this guy was like,
except George Foreman
Hall of Famer,
had
like
terrifying power.
Yeah, like he would lumber after you, and you'd be kind of like, should I be scared? And then you'd be out on the canvas, right? Like,
can we quickly talk about the incredibly mean resting face that George Foreman has? So, like George Foreman, if you ever see him in public, if you meet him in real life,
oh my gosh, I'm pretty sure we have a picture of him.
He's the nicest guy. Like he knows who he is and what he is, and what is part of that of him being a beloved heavyweight champion.
Yeah.
And also like he sells his George Foreman grills and being a celebrity. You go over there, he's talk.
Always super nice. Like he gets on Twitter.
Anybody. And
he's nice. Even when I see people being kind of like jerks.
He'll be nice.
Yeah.
If you email him, no matter like what you say or whatever, he'll email you back. Like he's that awesome of a guy. But if you just saw him, if you didn't know who he was.
Sitting there doing nothing.
Which I've seen him just by himself. I mean, he just looks like terrifying. You're like, oh my god, I'm not talking to that guy. And he's so big, even as an older man, like he looks terrifying and scary. Joe Joyce doesn't really have that about him, but Joe Joyce does have the lumbering.
Yeah. He was slow, but what we noticed is he fought Bryant Jennings, and Bryant Jennings is definitely past his prime.
Yeah.
And it was a 12-round decision, and I just felt like Joyce should have been able to do more than that. Also, so that tells me he doesn't have a lot of power.
No.
And
he has got.
I don't want to be in the ring with him, right?
Me neither.
He would slowly like beat me down within like a round, but it tells me he doesn't have a lot of power. And then what we notice is that his slowness leaves him open. And I said, if he was in there with Andy Ruiz, he'd be done.
Yeah, and I saw Mark Ortega, who works for PBC, he's a longtime boxing writer, also said, I was like, hey, that's just what Rachel said. He said it in a different way, but he basically said the same thing. Like interviews would, and I said something similar.
He's fast. That's how he beat Joshua, right? Like in and out, and you're like
anybody that's fast with power. What Joe Joyce does is he's a big, lumbering volume puncher who's also slow. So somebody out there who's explosive and fast is going to fill those gaps that he leaves because he throws punches, but he's so slow that there's all these gaps where somebody can come in and hit him. Somebody's going to do that. Bryant Jennings had some success in that in the fight.
Yeah, he hurt him.
But he didn't do it enough. Like that's the whole thing about Bryant Jennings. He looks good in spots, but he hasn't really put it together for a full 12 rounds against upper echelon people.
And Joyce can have like a good career. Like his team can pick his fights moving forward and be very careful about the fights that they pick, and he could stack up wins, which would be good for him. And then I think he would be a good, like, what do you call it, gatekeeper? I don't know. He's not going to be elite, like, at the top. I don't think he's going to be world champion, like, in the way we think of a champion. I'm sure he could get a belt somewhere, but like a real champion.
I don't think his ceiling
but like
is...
then he would be a great guy for other people up and coming to fight, and they either like pass by him, right? They beat him and then get other guys, or they don't, and it's a good test for them. But I think there's lots of like career like that out there.
That's
in
really good analysis. And honestly, like if he was 24 years old or something,
that was the other
we would
thing,
look at him
Kelsey.
differently. But he's 33, so you better get up there and take your shots while you can. Who knows? It will be fun to watch regardless, because he's got a huge fan base who puts goggles, the UK goggles on, just admires this guy. They want to sing songs to this guy, right? And he's a heavyweight. He throws a lot of volume. I saw him doing a little bolo punch stuff in there. Like, this is going to be fun to watch. And who knows what happens. I'm excited to see what happens. Now, the small bolo port, we already talked about a little bit earlier, definitely goes to Jermaine Franklin. It's not Jermaine Franklin's fault, okay? I don't want anybody out there who might be a Jermaine Franklin fan to think that we don't love and support Jermaine Franklin. My problem here is, honestly, with Showtime. What's going on over at Showtime where they're buying a fight like this, of this guy, putting him in a main event, even on a ShowBox card, and putting out press releases about him being maybe the top American prospect. And then I saw other writers pull from that press release and write about him being a big prospect. We've seen him twice now. We saw him on the undercard Clarissa Shields versus Christina Hammer. He didn't look very good then. In this fight, which was like his big, like, hey, you're the main event on Showtime. We're sending out these press releases about you. He comes in like almost...
And to be in the full main event.
15 pounds. The other one was the undercard. But it was the main event, yeah.
Okay.
It was a triple header.
Was
it was, but it wasn't the main event. It was always the main event. But like, you put this guy in this spot, he comes in heavier than we saw him last time. And more than that, beyond all that, he just doesn't look very good. To call him the top American heavyweight prospect, I think, puts him in a bad position, because then people like me see it and have to say, like, hey, who's sending that out in press releases? This does not look like it's the truth. I'm not saying that I don't want him to become that. Hey, become that and be something and be awesome.
Well, it's just
but you don't look like that right now.
We bump into in boxing, which is like, you get, like, we talked about ESPN, and all of a sudden they were talking about the lineal champion. And you're like, this was like, you're supposed to be a sports journalism, but this isn't honest.
All of a sudden, it's not honest, because you don't do that in any other time.
What Showtime's doing. And then I heard somebody talk about, gosh, I wish I could remember exactly what it was, but it was Jim Gray who said something about a fight that was like, and they said, when did Jim Gray become a company man? Like, they were saying basically that he just like jumped on the bandwagon, like, we're just going to say this because this is our Showtime guy. And like, it makes me not trust the entity, which in this case is Showtime.
So I don't know what's going on over there, Showtime, but I don't like it. So change it. I feel like
this day and age, like, everybody is like all about like honesty and authenticity and being genuine, and so like,
if you want to just call him like a heavyweight hopeful or something, I don't know. Like, he's a big guy. He won some amateur thing. Like, he's not. He could beat me up. I'm not saying that he can't like beat most people up, but all I'm saying is as far as elite world level heavyweights, and especially right now, right? Maybe if I don't even know back then. Like, he doesn't look like he has that right now. Maybe he can become that, but there's absolutely nothing in any of the fights that I've seen that warrant him being proclaimed as some like heavyweight contender, like some big heavyweight American contender. That's simply not true. I feel like you could go find somebody in the amateurs right now who you'd be like, I don't know, this guy's better. Like, that's what I say. I say that like, this guy didn't look bad. He actually looked like he lost the fight. I mean, like, to a guy that wasn't even very good. Like, I don't think that. So hopefully we don't have to endure such things like that again. I know you don't have a lot of choices Showtime as far as who you get fights from, but you got to be a little more judicious than that, or you're going to end up showing us a bunch of garbage cards full of fighters that people shouldn't really see. I say shouldn't because show us the best fighters. Show the fighters that are going to be successful instead of guys that don't look like they're going to be successful.
When you show fights like that, and it's so hard to get like women's boxing.
I felt bad for the people that called the fight, Barry Tompkins and Steve Farhood and Raul Marquez, because I mean, like, it's their job to call the fight. In the first round, there was LaFleury, and there's one of them, Raul Marquez, who actually lives in Houston, said something like about shades of Hagler Hearns, and I was like, yeah, except these guys look terrible. Like, I'm saying, like, as far as elite world-class professional boxing goes, this is the kind of stuff you see when you go to a local boxing gym and see guys spar and throw punches, or whatever. Like, it didn't look like good boxing.
Yeah.
So anyway, I hope, now that being said, I hope Jermaine Franklin just becomes the greatest heavyweight
And he
fighter
can.
ever.
We were
Do
just
that.
talking.
Prove me wrong.
You were
Jermaine.
talking earlier about Tyson Fury and how when we first got to see him, it didn't seem like he was going to one day be heavyweight champion of the world.
How we just talked about Joyce. I was like, well, he'll be fun to watch, but I didn't think it becomes like this. And also, anybody that comes out in the ring walk to Master P song is good people by me, man. I loved it. Keep doing that and keep winning fights. But Showtime, you're on our list. You just made the list! Nobody's going to know that. Until next time, this is Rachel, I'm Kelsey, and we're your best boxing friends. Unless you work for Showtime. What?
Even if you work for Showtime, we can be honest with each other.
That's true. We can have our opinions.
Tiptoe around people.
That's not.
Or do I?
Do
I have to tiptoe around people?
Just tell people what you think. This is our...
Just take it or leave it. You know what?
Take it or leave it. You can take us or leave it. People are like, unsubscribe. Hey, don't do that. Come back.
Yeah.
Validate our existence.
Okay.
What?